Welcome to Good News from St. Andrew's, Guelph. I'm your host, the Reverend John Borthwick, and it is my pleasure to be with you on this very special week in the Christian Church. We call this week Holy Week, and what it sort of is bracketed by is Palm Sunday, which was this past Sunday, and Easter Sunday, the Sunday that is coming. On Good Friday this week, at 11 a.m. on Rogers TV 20, you'll be able to watch and participate in our Good Friday service that we're hosting here at St. Andrew's in a pre-recorded way because of our restrictions. But I thought all this maybe would be a question for us to consider, because this week is called Holy Week, and in a way, this is the big show. This is the big event. This is the thing that perhaps in the Christian tradition is even bigger than Christmas, if you can believe it. And so, what is so holy about Holy Week? Well, near the end of the gospel stories, so from Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, the four gospel accounts, the stories of Jesus that we have in the Holy Bible, in the New Testament, there's something called the Passion narratives. And basically, they're the story of Jesus' last days on earth before he is killed by the Romans by crucifixion. And they call that in the Christian tradition the Passion, where Jesus is arrested and suffers and dies, is called this passion piece of who Jesus is and what his story is. And it all starts on Palm Sunday. So Palm Sunday, the story goes that Jesus arrives in the big city called Jerusalem in Israel, the city that hosts the temple. The temple of Jerusalem was the very holiest of places within the religion that was Judaism, under the oppression, auspices of the Roman Empire, the oversight of the Roman Empire at that time when Jesus was around and lived. Jesus enters the gate at Jerusalem, one of the gates, and as he's entering, he's on a donkey, he's riding a donkey. His followers begin to shout out, "Save us, Jesus, save us," or "Hosanna, Hosanna." They take tree branches down, palm branches. They take off their cloaks and they place them as Jesus is being led in by this donkey. And they're shouting and they're waving palm branches and they're saying, "Blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord." All of this is what they call Jesus' triumphal entry. He's essentially lorded as a king is entering the city of Jerusalem. Now, the Romans already had a kind of king, Caesar, the emperor, the most powerful man in the entire Roman Empire. And the Roman authorities were certainly watching what was going on. Now, there'd been many people who'd participated in revolts, new prophets that would come to town, people who were said to be the new king or the revolutionary. And so this kind of little activity at a gate in Jerusalem might have raised a few eyebrows within the Roman oversight of the governor's house, perhaps. And certainly it concerned the Jewish authorities, the religious leaders of the day who were trying to keep the peace, trying to maintain control within their own community, as they knew that if they upset the Romans, it could lead to some pretty disastrous things. So Holy Week begins with this Palm Sunday, and it's this celebration. It's a sort of a high. There's excitement in the air. There's an idea of possible future hope. You may remember from other things we've talked about over these past few months that Jesus was considered this one, this chosen one, this one the prophets had told him about, this one who was going to perhaps even overthrow the Roman Empire. So this was a big and amazing and important day, Palm Sunday. And throughout the tradition of the Christian church year, there were some decisions made that throughout this week they would keep sort of a special kind of retelling of the story, of the narrative, of the drama of Holy Week. And so there's something that happens on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday of Holy Week. And just to let you know a little something, if you go deep and try to figure out the chronology of some of these things, they won't always make sense and they won't always intersect. Sometimes within the tradition that is the Christian church, decisions are made for the sake of telling the story, not for the sake of making sure that history is exactly correct and precise. Just something to think about as you navigate these stories about our Bible and the story that we tell. So tradition has Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday something happening, and within the Protestant tradition, there isn't a lot of focus on those 3 days. There isn't a huge amount of focus on Monday, Thursday, or Good Friday either, which is kind of interesting. But in the past, and certainly maybe even a little more now, people are looking for rituals and markers of special events within the church year and things to sort of come back into tradition a little more. So Thursday is actually called Maundy Thursday. Now that's a very strange word, Maundy. And what it comes from is a Roman word that meant commandment. Mandatum, commandment. And why they connect those two phrases together is because it's believed that on the Thursday, Jesus offered a new commandment to his disciples and perhaps to us. So this new mandatum, this Maundy Thursday, was a time when Jesus said that the disciples should love one another as he has loved them. Love people in this world. Be examples of this world of how you love and care for other people. And he did it literally in an example where he washed the disciples' feet. And in ancient times, washing someone's feet was the work of a servant. But Jesus took a towel, bent down, and washed the feet of his friends. Not only showing and demonstrating love for them and care for them, but then commanding them to love one another as he has been that example. There's also a sense that on the Thursday, as we tell the story, that this was the night of Passover, a very big tradition within the Jewish festivals, a story that's connected all the way back to Exodus, one of the first 5 books of the Bible, and deeply meaningful within the Jewish tradition. And Jesus participated in that festival. Now you'll find, again, if you're going to dig a little more, you may find that some folks will ask questions around the actual timing, because some people actually believe that Jesus may have been crucified before Passover. And if that's the case, then he would have had to have been crucified by the Romans on Thursday, not Friday. But again, I'll leave that with you to think about, and let's just continue with what tradition tells us. So on the Thursday, we believe that he was betrayed by one of his friends named Judas. And with Judas, there's a whole bunch of different things that we think about who he is. I think it's really important to understand and lean into, perhaps, the idea that Judas believed in Jesus in a very powerful way and wanted to see him act. And maybe the betrayal was his attempt to get Jesus to act. And what happened was he was surprised by how Jesus acted. He was perhaps hoping that Jesus would use all the power that he believed Jesus had to do something. And Jesus, in fact, didn't, and went along a journey of suffering and death. And that would have been a tremendous surprise to Judas. And unfortunately, Judas gets an extremely bad rap in the story that is told about Jesus' last days. Now, on Good Friday, now that's a very strange word again for something, the day that marks the day that Jesus died. Jesus is arrested. He's, tortured, mistreated by the authorities. They're trying to make a decision of what's going to happen to him. He's flogged at one point, whipped by the Roman authorities. He's mocked. He's beaten. He's mistreated by the crowds. And then they finally decide that he will be crucified, which was the Romans' way of demonstrating their power and authority. And it was essentially a way of promoting terror within the empire. It basically said, we are in charge, and this is who is in charge here. You want to go against us? This is what happens. You get put on a cross. And so when we call it Good Friday, some people might be like, well, what's good about Good Friday? Well, it's actually an Old English word, and it means God's Friday. So this is the Friday that is God's Friday. But it got translated, or as it was spoken about, it was called Good Friday or God's Friday. Good Friday. And so it was kind of strange in how it all came to be, but today we just call it Good Friday, and that's all we have to think about. It's but it's actually God's Friday. This is the important act that God is putting on display for everyone. The belief is that Jesus was crucified. He dies around 3 p.m. The temple curtain tears, it said. There's an earthquake. The sky goes dark. There's a lot of imagery around this story of Jesus dying on the cross. He cries out in his abandonment, "Where are you, God?" We have a lot of connectedness to this sort of suffering and death of Jesus, and in his humanness we hear the cries that many humans might cry. "Where are you, God? Why have you forsaken me?" And it's a very dark and difficult day to lean into as we walk this drama of the passion of Jesus. Crucifixion was an awful way to die, and we've seen many depictions of it. Maybe you know more about it as well. But the belief is that someone was basically structured in a way on the cross that they wouldn't get enough air into their lungs, and their lungs would fill with fluid. And so you would eventually drown in your own fluids. It wasn't a very nice way to die. It was a horrible way to die. It was meant to be prolonged because it was meant to show other people about who's in charge. The Roman Empire is in charge. When Jesus dies, his body is taken down from the cross, and we're told that needs to happen because it's the Sabbath. There's the preparation for the Sabbath around Judaism. Again, that's where that little curiosity around, was it the Sabbath preparations for Passover, or was it the Friday preparations for Sabbath that was coming on Friday evening at sundown? He's put into a tomb, and they roll a stone across the tomb. Now, for his disciples, they probably thought, this is it, like it's over. We thought he was the Messiah. We believed what he said. What's going to happen now? And for some of them, they probably worried that they were going to be rounded up and put on crosses as well. They too would die for being a friend or a follower of this Jesus. There was a lot of uncertainty, a lot of mourning, a lot of pain. And within the Christian tradition, we have what we call the Saturday Vigil. Again, not really connected too much within the Protestant tradition, but in many Anglican traditions and Catholic traditions, there is this Saturday Vigil where they hold a service where they basically retell the entire story of God leading up to Jesus. Often it's meant to be happening up until about midnight, and then the new day comes. Now, I'm going to hold any conversation about the new day, about Easter, until next week. I don't want to spoil the ending in case you aren't sure what's going to happen next. But I'll just leave that for now. And that's what makes this Holy Week holy. Essentially, what's beautiful about the way the Christian church tells the story throughout the year is it attempts to actually get us hooked into the drama every single year. It's like we're retelling the story and we're participants in it. So the kind of services we hold and the kind of words we use and the kind of music that we have gets us really deeply connected in a full-bodied, full experiential way with the feelings of the sense of loss and grief of this journey. And that's what makes Holy Week so holy. So I invite you to keep a holy week. May it be meaningful to you as you come alongside Jesus on his journey of suffering and struggle, as he steps away from deciding to use what the world expects to combat violence with violence, to respond to power with more power, and as we walk along Jesus and see a new way of living, a way that's marked by loving one another. So today, as you continue with our service, it's the service from Sunday, March 28th, Palm Sunday, and we're going to have a walk through the last 2 chapters of Mark that talk about the Passion. We aren't going to get to the last chapter of Mark quite yet, but the chapter 14 and 15 of the Gospel of Mark, as Mark tells his story of who Jesus was and what happens to Jesus on those last days of his life on earth. And we believe this is good news.